Hey guys, finding accommodations for extended stays of maybe weeks to months requires a little bit of a different strategy than maybe booking a week-long vacation, right? You're looking for a temporary home, maybe not just a room somewhere. So one of the biggest questions that we get on this channel is how we find accommodations when we're traveling for months at a time. So after several years now of traveling through North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia, we've learned that the best monthly stays really aren't always on the big booking platforms. So these are going to be just a few of the methods that we personally use to find accommodations when we're traveling. Are there others out there? Absolutely. But these are the ones that have kept us on budget and allowed us to have maybe more unique experiences, especially in a lot of cases, more immersive experiences. So stick around because I'm also going to share one that gets a lot of attention, but could actually ruin your trip if you're not careful. Hey, if you're new here, I'm Joel, and along with my wife, Michelle, we're helping travelers and digital nomads over 45 live a healthy, abundant lifestyle abroad. Now, we're not talking about, when we say abundant, we're not necessarily talking about traveling for as cheap as possible. We've been there, we've done that, but it's really more about finding a balance between budget and prioritizing our well-being and health when we're traveling for months at a time. Now, if you've been watching, this is our third video in our series where we're showing you how we prepare for our 7th season of slow travel. It's pretty cool. So if this lifestyle sounds like something that you want to design for yourself, check to see if you're subscribed to the channel first. And also while you're doing that, take a minute to subscribe if you're not. And also sign up to our newsletter. If you haven't already joined, we have weekly tips and insights about travel and the nomadic life. It's free and it comes out every Friday. Also, when you confirm your subscription, you get like a little freebie guide too. Be sure to drop a comment too. I'd love to hear how you find accommodations when you're traveling. See, we kind of compare notes here. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is let's talk about some of the big players here. And what I'm talking about here is probably the obvious, like the big booking platforms. So you're talking like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. I mean, there's a lot of them, right? I'm kind of lumping them all together in just online platforms rather than going through each individual one. Now, of course, there's a reason that they dominate because they're very, very convenient. But that convenience does come with a sort of convenience tax. Now, sometimes people might call this more like an Airbnb tax, where a lot of times the monthly rates that you're paying might be double or triple what the local market basically can handle. And that's in addition to maybe some additional fees and things like that that you might have to pay for, thinking like cleaning fees and such. There is a hack that you can use, and it's kind of like, I guess a lot of people might call it the 28-day hack. And this is where a lot of hosts on some of these platforms offer some pretty significant discounts, often 40 to 60% off. And we've actually seen these discounts for not even a month. Sometimes we've seen them for as little as like maybe 3 weeks. Now, if you put in your dates and everything and you're looking for it and you don't see a discount reflected, like it doesn't change at all, then don't be dissuaded. Just go ahead and send the host a message and tell them a little bit about yourself, kind of what you're trying to do. For us, that might be, we're a travel quiet couple who travel and we're looking for a place to stay for, say, the next 2 months while we explore the city. They might not say yes, they might not give you a discount, but we've actually gotten this happen a few times where we've gotten actually pretty significant discounts and even had some really, really amazing stays because of it. So for our second one, let's talk about kind of like the big secret weapon out there, and that is Facebook. The Facebook groups are pretty awesome, and as much as I don't care for Facebook, the groups are great. They're really good. There's a lot of people on there, and we can use that as well to try to find accommodations in places. For instance, if we're looking for going to, say, Da Nang, Vietnam, right? It's a place that we spent a bunch of time last year. We hop on those Facebook groups and we search things like, expats in Da Nang, or digital nomad Da Nang, or apartments for rent Da Nang. So these types of things. That's like, there's a lot of different phrasing that you can put in there, but you'll surely find what we're talking about. But this is where you can find like real listings from both individuals as well as maybe like property managers, sometimes agents. Also, sometimes it's like other foreign nationals that maybe have vacation homes there, or even some expats. So they might be renting out their apartments or what have you in the high season or just whenever they're not there. So now the third method that we're going to talk about is really kind of a combination strategy here, and it's really combining a web search with Google Maps. Now, we found this as a way, especially for different cities, like regional stuff. You're going to find all of the, the Airbnb, not the Airbnbs, the what are they called? B&Bs. There you go. Smaller places or maybe small residential apartment buildings and things that you just you're not going to see those on like a big booking platform. But a lot of times these guys will do like shorter term stuff as well. So that is definitely one to look into. I will talk a little bit more about Google Maps and everything in another video where we'll be going over like how we determine the criteria for what you're looking for, and then also how to vet different properties. So now for our fourth strategy here, we're talking about, and this is one that is a little bit more advanced strategy. It's not for everybody. We'll go and book like a hotel or something for a week and kind of do a boots on the ground search for apartments. So this is where we're spending the first few days meeting up with agents in person, maybe physically walking through apartments and just checking everything out, making sure there's no big red flags like construction directly next door, making sure it has high-speed internet, is there good water pressure, like more and more things like that. Now, the problem is, like I said, this is very time consuming, and you probably don't want to spend your first week just trying to figure all this stuff out. We did this in Vietnam and did not have the best experience with it. So again, I don't recommend it for everybody. And if you are one that gets very anxious and you like to have things planned out, well, this is definitely not a method that I would recommend. But however, it is okay. And I think it's still a really good option, especially if you're planning on staying for a long time. Like if you're going to be there for 2 or 3 months, depending on what your visa situation is, it could be actually, it might be worth doing that. But for shorter stays, I definitely would not recommend that. For number 5, we're talking about hostels. And don't click away immediately. I know, hostels have a reputation for being kind of big places you go party, maybe really young 19-year-olds or what have you. Yeah, it has that element, and there's a lot of hostels that are like that, but it's not every hostel, and they're not all full of like just dorm rooms only. We've used hostels many times, and we typically like to use them for short stays, like just for a few days or whatever. But they can be a good option. We typically look for ones that have a private bathroom, private room, and again, we like places that have like some kind of a open space for community, or even like a common area or a cafe nearby or something, right? So these are some of the things that we look for there. They can be cheap, but they can also be not so cheap. We've seen hostels in some places that were as much as an actual hotel room. So they're not always the best, but again, I think they're okay for short term. Now, like I said, we wouldn't stay for more than a week or so in a hostel, but the nice thing is that there's also a sense of community that you get. And if you are looking for that, and there's always other people from all over the place, all walks of life, and all ages too. So it's a really good way to meet people. I want to give a real quick shout out to our channel members, our little tribe members out there. Your guys' support means a lot to us. We do have a bunch of member videos that you can check out if you're not a member, that you can get access by joining. Also, if you are digging this and you're getting some good information out of this video with like logistics that are helping you plan, consider buying us a glass of wine. It fuels the hours that we spend researching, writing, mostly editing, because that's the biggest one, videos like this. Speaking of community, that brings us to number 5, and that is co-living. Now, if you're thinking, okay, co-livings are basically like, fancy hostels or whatever, dorm rooms, think again, it's not always like that. The idea is basically a bunch of nomads get together. Maybe they run a house, or there's a complex that's already catering to them, where they have shared living spaces, private rooms, sometimes a private bathroom, sometimes, you know, a shared bathroom, but you get a shared kitchen, a dedicated co-working space, and all that stuff. Now, it is a good option for, working nomads, or just like hostels, anybody who wants to connect with other people. Because like I said, there's kind of a built-in community in these. And we've honestly done this, and we've met a lot of really great people this way. We're actually staying in one in Bulgaria, and this is gonna be our 5th year doing that. And that one's set up a little bit differently. It's probably the most ideal situation for a co-live, and that's one where it's literally kind of like an apartment complex, where we have our own apartment, full kitchen, bath, everything. But on the grounds, we also have like a pool, we have a co-working space, that for the daytime, that usually doubles at night as like a kind of an event space where people can get together and, play board games or just talk, watch movies, that kind of thing. There's they usually put together like some kind of, again, like a little special outing. Someone in the community will like, hey, we're gonna go do this winery tour or something like that. Anyways, it's a really great way to do that. We've met some really amazing people there that have become our friends, and some of them we actually meet up in other places, which is pretty cool. Now, there are a couple of downsides, and like I said, that is, like sharing a kitchen could be a downside for you if you're someone who likes to cook all the time. But it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world, because there might be other people that want to cook, and maybe you can get some good cooking ideas or whatever. But if you're like that, then maybe it's more of a short-term option for you. Overall, I think that the co-lives are a really great opportunity, and I think they're really overlooked. So we highly recommend them, and we've had really great experiences in some too. Okay, so now let's talk about the 7th one, and this is the one I was talking about at the beginning of the video. This is the one that can get you in trouble if you're not careful. And that is, again, I'm grouping this together, but this is like the free housing options, right? So the 2 biggest things like this are going to be things like doing those work exchange programs or house sitting. Let's just talk about house sitting, for instance. Basically you get free rent in exchange for pet care, or maybe doing some maintenance around the house. Sounds amazing, sounds like the most ideal, perfect situation. It can be, but it's also a job. And so you might know where I'm going with this. You're in someone else's house following their rules, and that means that there's a possible legal issue, because if you're traveling on a tourist visa and you're doing house sitting where you're performing work, you're receiving a benefit, that is housing, in exchange for a service like taking care of a pet or doing some kind of maintenance or something like that on the property. You could get in a lot of trouble because you're traveling on the wrong permit. You might need a work permit for that, depending on the country. That is something that you definitely want to make sure that you fully understand that ahead of time. If you're going to choose this, just do your due diligence. Also, make sure you have a backup plan, especially because things like house sits can fall through, like at the last minute, because you're literally, someone's vacation plans change for whatever reason and they're not going anymore. Well, now you don't have a place to stay. So you'll want to make sure you've got a backup plan just in case that happens. Or it could be mid-sit, halfway through the, 2 weeks in, they come back early again, something happens and now you're kind of kicked out. So always have a backup plan. And along with that, we always recommend having an emergency fund set aside so that you can pivot real quickly if you need to. Having a backup plan in this emergency fund also goes for not just house sets, but we've experienced the same thing with Airbnbs, where we've had an Airbnb cancel on us like 2 weeks before we were supposed to go to Dublin. And then we're like trying to figure out like, oh crap, now we got 2 weeks to try to find something else. Now that situation was also during a big U2 concert. We're big U2 fans. And so, as you can imagine, 2 weeks out from the U2 concert, all of a sudden, it's really slim pickings on what is out there that isn't insanely crazy. Of course, we ended up having to book like a hotel, which ended up costing, it was a nice hotel, but it was really like the only thing that was available that wasn't absolutely, insanely priced. but we end up spending about twice as much money as we originally planned on spending. So have a backup plan. All right, so let's wrap this up with a couple takeaways, and this is probably the most important one, and that is if you want to live a healthy, abundant life that includes reducing stress, focusing on your well-being, learning to be flexible, learning to be patient will pay you dividends in your travels as well as your everyday life. Look, unless you have an unlimited budget, you're probably not going to find the perfect place every single time. And maybe you will, maybe you won't, right? But this is especially true when traveling in like high seasons as well, and even shoulder seasons nowadays, since in a lot of the more popular destinations, these shoulder seasons are kind of blurring into just one like long high season. So again, being flexible is really like a superpower that allows you to take action in bad situations and allow you to walk away for your own well-being in, if need be. So like I said before, keep an emergency fund for those moments, have a backup like hotel or something. Finding the right place is really just half the battle. The other battle is honestly like maintaining your health and well-being while traveling abroad. We're going to show you how we set up our nomad health systems that let us do just that in our next travel prep video. Hey, thanks again for coming along with me on this walk and watching this video. Let's see, we ended up getting just a little over 3,000 steps. I hope this is helpful. Let me know in the comments. Happy wandering.